from the Delaware Department of Insurance. It went out to all carriers and producers transacting insurance with Medicare eligible residents in Delaware, which something that was interesting there, the Idaho ones went out to specific carriers by name. This one is out to all carriers, which is kind of interesting. Unfair trade practices in marketing insurance products to Delaware residents eligible for Medicare. This bulletin supersedes forms and rates bulletin number 10. I'm just going to skip all this. Prohibited conduct. This is kind of what we're looking at here. Now, is this is not the whole letter, right? This is just kind of the beginning.
This is just the start of it. So maybe I can see if while you're going through this, maybe I can see if I can find then.
Okay. Okay, so the department considers the following actions to be unfair methods of competition or deceptive acts under 18 Del C 2304, even if not explicitly listed in the statute. Under 18 Del C 2307, the commissioner may determine that other practices not specifically enumerated also constitute violations if they are unfair, deceptive, or detrimental to the insurance buying public. Number 1, so there's like some bullet points here. Failure to make enrollment applications readily available and easily accessible in all formats. So I want to take these one by one because agents see that and they're like, okay, great, right? That constitutes suppressing enrollments into certain plans. But if that's not saying the carrier has to pay commissions on those plans. It just means they can't suppress them if they're going to be offered in the state. Now, the argument then goes to the carrier doesn't want the business, at least according to the carriers, right? So, it kind of incentivizes them to get rid of the plans faster, as soon as they can, that type of thing. But it doesn't mean they have to pay commissions. Okay, so that just means that they have to offer them in the same light and easily accessible, just like any other plan. So if anything, that single spot right there is actually bad for agents in Delaware. Because if you have a non-commissionable plan, but the carrier is also suppressing it, the chances that someone's going to enroll into it without you is very slim because it's essentially hidden. This is stating that they're not allowed to hide it. They have to put it out there in full transparency, and it's a product that you as an agent can't offer, right? So that part of it alone, honestly, probably not great for producers. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, perfect. I just found it. Boom. It's only 3 pages. So it's not, I don't think we're missing a lot here, but I found the actual document. I think that, and this is part of the evolving conversation with this whole thing that I really wanted to talk about today is like this idea behind be careful what you ask for.
Right.
That's kind of what you just covered right there, right? Is like, how this could potentially be a negative thing. And that's what I saw a lot of the conversation around this. There was a lot of agents who immediately kind of went to this approach, which, look at the Inflation Reduction Act, right? A lot of people want it. If you just said, hey, should we cap the cost of prescription drugs for seniors? Almost everyone would be like, oh, hell yeah, right? Like, let's protect Medicare beneficiaries. Let's do it. But here we are. Be careful what you ask for. Like, look at the cascading effects from that. And so, this could easily be another situation where it's like, we thought this was a good thing, but now it's turned into something that we didn't think. So I am going to, let's see, what's the best way to get this to you? Should I send this to you in Teams?
Here, maybe you share.
You want me to just share? Okay, I'll share.
Yeah.
All right. One moment. We're going to get the official document.
Un momento.
That's what we do here. The official bulletin. So I found this right on the Department of Insurance website for Delaware. Here we go. Can you see my screen, good sir?
Yes. Okay, so let's go to the next. Maybe zoom in a little bit as well, if you can. Okay, so let's go to the next bullet point. Okay, so I think we should take these one at a time. So the next one is discouraging or dissuading producers from marketing or selling approved products. A little vague, right? So discouraging, you could almost say that ties in line with the first bullet point there about suppressing plans. It's not necessarily saying like you're discouraging an agent from selling a plan. You could argue that directly is tied to broker compensation, but you could also directly say that it's by removing plans from quoting tools and things like that. It doesn't necessarily say you have to pay the agent, right?
Correct.
The next one, modifying or eliminating producer compensation mid-year. My argument to that would be, I guess my question to that would be, if not mid-year, then when? Because me as an agent, I would actually prefer it being more in the middle of the year.
I lost you for a second here. You froze on me. Assuming it's you and not me. That's
and I can take a look at me. It could be probably any time. But hello, did you lose me?
Yeah, I lost you there for a second. You said the last thing I caught was if not mid-year, then when?
Okay, yes. Yeah, so I would much rather them make plans non-committal.
I lost your audio again, sir. I lost your audio. I'll kind of share my thoughts while Christian's getting his connection figured out here. I'm a big fan of this idea
or AEP in the calendar year. Am I back?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's you or me on the connection thing.
It keeps speeding. It's this weird thing where like I hear what you said at like 10 times the speed after I can't hear you for a while. I don't know what that is.
Oh, weird.
To kind of finish my thoughts on this though, is like I'm a big fan of the idea that when the plans get filed, they're filed as commissionable or non-commissionable. You know, what I think's been one of the hardest things to deal with this year, similar to what we saw last year, it's the last second non-commissionable changes, right? If you go, you're trying to plan ahead, you're creating your marketing plan, or you're creating your marketing budget, or you're looking at, what carriers and what plans are available for your book of business, and to have the rug pulled on you, whether that's, end of September, October, November. I mean, we've seen this across the board, right? If you include last year. So I'm a big fan of making this a lot earlier, and making that a rule. I mean, if CMS was to adopt something, this is what I would love to see adopted. I would love to see something adopted early on where the plan, that rug pull, again, if we could try to eliminate that rug pull on agents when it comes to these non-commissionable plans. Because something we've talked about a ton on the show, and Christian can speak to this, is there's always been non-commissionable plans. Like the idea of a non-commissionable plan isn't new. We haven't seen the scale and we haven't seen the timing like we have over the past couple of years. There's more non-commissionable plans than ever. And we've never had it where right before or during AEP, we're seeing those non-commissionable plans come to fruition. So in my opinion, that's been the worst part and the biggest net negative effect. So huge fan of modifying or eliminating, like it says here, modifying or eliminating producer compensation mid-year. So let's draw a deadline, whether that's June 1st, July 1st, or when the carrier files that product in the state. Let's do it then. I think that would be great. We have multiple Christian Brindles. There's more than one. He's cloning himself.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
I hope that fixes my connection issues. So I didn't hear everything that you said, but what I did hear was kind of the rug pulling, right? Happening
Yes.
mid-year.
Yeah, that was the
I
gist of it. Yeah.
that kind of ties into the next bullet point there, which is
Yeah, it
withholding
does.
compensation on products that were filed with commission built into the rate structure. That part of it, I think, is pretty easy for carriers to navigate. Instead of filing them as commissionable, they'll just start filing them as non-commissionable. Like, I don't know if that really bodes too much long term. But what it might do is it might give us more advance notice on plans that are going to be non-commissionable. That's what that could do, which I think that kind of goes into what you were saying about having more notice and preparing for AP in terms of that.
Yeah. One thing that we've talked a lot about with some of these last second changes is like, what new information did the carrier really get that they didn't know before? When we get an announcement last day of September or first week of October, right? What information did they possibly get that they couldn't have done this significantly sooner, right? I think that's a really strong argument to be made here. So, even if it's not filed, even if compensation isn't, even if we don't lock them down on compensation when the product gets filed in the state, I think there's got to be a deadline. There's got to be a deadline for announcing these non-commissionable plans. And that's essentially what's being listed here. So I'm all for this.
Well, the problem here is the word announcement isn't there.
Right.
It doesn't say anything about when they have to announce it. It has to do with how they file them. They could still announce it today under these terms.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that's where I look at this and I think it's being misinterpreted for what it's actually telling these carriers they need to do. I think there's some good things in here, but there's some things I wish were here that aren't, I guess.
Yeah. There's some vagary, just like the, mid-year, like what does mid-year mean? There's a lot of vagueness with the wording on some of this. It's like, I think there's a lot of positivity you could pull from it, but it's not as specific as maybe you'd want it to be. So I'll read the next point here. Creating internal policies or incentives that steer consumers away from certain approved products regardless of suitability. Thoughts on that one?
I think some of these are just them finding new creative ways to say what they've already said, right? Like, they're saying the first bullet point, that's essentially the same thing. Discouraging or dissuading producers from marketing or selling approved plans.
Right.
The one before that, I believe, was talking about suppressing plans. Same thing, right? Like steering people away from plans they don't want sold. Yeah, it's kind of more the same of what they've already said there. And then the next one, delaying or obstructing producer access to enrollment tools, training, or materials necessary to support sales. Again, right? The vagary in this, because does enrollment tools, training, or materials matter if there are no commissions in the plan?
No.
No. At least they shouldn't be, which I
But it's
think.
like what? Yeah, it's like what you want to make sure producers have access to the non-commissionable. They should have access to the non-commissionable plans.
Right.
It's like,
right.
Yeah.
Retaliating against producers who raise concerns about compensation practices or consumer access barriers. Sounds great. I'm good with that. You shouldn't be terminating agents' contracts, I think, for raising those alarms. For whistleblowing.
Correct.
I'm good with that. But again, I think carriers are way smarter than these DOIs are. Like I think
they know the rule book, right? They know the rule book inside and out. And that's something I've tried to stress before with you guys is there's nothing the carriers have been doing that's illegal. They're 100% allowed to do what they've been doing. Being a part of our contract agreement with these carriers is that they can change the compensation. It's up to them, right? And they can do it anytime, right? A shout out to Randy he has the link to this document in the comments below this video. So if you guys want to actually see this document that the state of Delaware DOI put out, feel free to grab that link and share it if you'd like to. Now we can kind of continue on here. Yeah, a lot of vagueness in those bullet points, but at the same time, it's like, how can you be hyper specific with some of this without sounding insane? Like putting an actual deadline in there. Like, I mean, they could have, right? They could have tried to draw up some specificities. I can't speak. Some specifics, but I don't know if they're really capable of in a document like this, because they're not able to, they're not, you can't legislate. That's not what this is, right?
Right. Which is why what I think could be a domino effect of these DOI communications is more of a CMS final rule that comes out that kind of regulates this a little bit more. The other thing about this too is, like, I do think one of two things needs to happen. I think agents want these carriers to offer plans like they did before all of this started happening and pay full commission on all these plans as well. They're not understanding the economics of it, right? Like, the carriers have to spend out a significantly higher amount more to have these plans structured in compliance with the new Inflation Reduction Act terms, right? On the prescription drug plan side. So one of two things has to happen. One, plans need to go away that aren't economically viable for the carrier anymore. That's going to take time. That takes years for those plans to phase out or change. Or two, CMS needs to double the funding that they're getting. One of those two things needs to happen, because, if you're telling the carriers that nothing's allowed to correct and they have to pay out full commission, but they still have to offer these plans, they can't suppress them. Like, there's a math aspect of this, right? Like, there's a math aspect where the carrier's getting squeezed and they're not really, don't have anywhere to go, and there's no profit for them, right? You don't want that either. You don't want that scenario either, where there's no profit for the carrier, because bad things end up happening then as well. All of this only works for all of us if the carrier can make money. And so that's another aspect of this, right? Like, that I've been thinking a lot about, and I don't think DOI letters are going to change that aspect of it either. I think as long as things are the way they are, I think the carriers will just find creative ways to maneuver around this vagary and keep doing the same things they're already doing, but maybe be a little more calculated about it. Maybe they, you know what I mean? Maybe they put out their non-commissionable plans a few months earlier, but do they have any less non-commissionable plans? Probably not. It's probably the same amount. Do agents get any less upset? Probably not.
Yeah. I think it's another piece of the puzzle, and this might be a good time to bring up this situation that I saw come up this weekend with this state of Delaware jumping into the mix. There were several agents, not just one, but several agents who were almost panicked, I would say, based on the comments and some of the commentary I was reading, where they were concerned that this type of pressure on the insurance carriers could result in all commissions being taken away. That basically the carriers will be like, you're bothered about how we're rolling out these plans as non-commissionable? Well, then too damn bad. We're taking all the commissions away. We're done paying you guys. This has been a pain in our ass. Thoughts on that? Because I saw, again, like I said, several agents who were concerned as if this was a real possibility.
I mean, I think we've been on a natural progression already where the market is correcting. I've been saying that all along, right?
Right.
I've been very consistent for the past year saying that plans need to go away that aren't economically viable anymore with the new structure. Plans are going to pressed and non-commissionable that it will soon go away, the next opportunity they can go away, and it's a 2 to 3 year reset. I think we were on that track as is. I do think that if there's not a solution presented in the way that I talked about a second ago, right, where there's either more funding put it down or the carriers have a way to get out from under these plans, one of the two, then I guess it's possible that the carriers do go to that length. Although I do think that we're on a course for correction. I really do believe that. I don't think that this is the new norm, like so many of you might think. You know, I've been saying that this would happen for a year in exactly this way, and it would happen for 2 to 3 years. And many of you just don't pay attention. You only see what's in front of your face. So I like holding the carriers accountable. I like, kind of keeping them in check in some regard, but I do think there's a limit to where if you do squeeze too much, bad repercussions can happen because, like I said a second ago, the carriers have to make a profit. You can't put these new regulations in place where they now have to spend out tons more on prescription costs. Their funding isn't where it needs to be to reflect that. And in addition to that, they don't have any time to course correct the market. So I don't know if it's going to go that far necessarily, but I do think that it could be a little premature in terms of squeezing them, because it's like, where are they supposed to go? Like, what do agents expect the carriers to do, I guess is the question. I don't know if anybody can answer that question, because these problems that we've talked about are there. They're not going anywhere until there's course correction.
So to put a pin in this for a second, I want to talk about the sponsor of today's episode 175 of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast. It is brought to you by the 7-Figure CRM. If you are looking for a system that can help automate your lead nurturing or your lead follow-up, if you're looking for a way to stay on top of your leads, because right now you are letting people fall through the cracks, look no further than the 7-Figure CRM. For $197 a month, you get access to everything inside the 7-Figure CRM, including templates, landing pages, some of the best support in the industry. I want to stress that because there are so many other CRM systems out there where they do not have any support. That's something that's important to Christian and I, and part of the reason why we designed this CRM system ourselves. On top of that, you get access to 7-Figure University, which has more than 250 training videos, not just about the CRM, although we have some training videos about the CRM in there, but also how you can be a monster producer in the Medicare industry, and all sorts of other great content around marketing, staffing, specific carrier training, etc. goes on. And those trainings outside of AAP happen live once a week. So you can actually join a live weekly call once a week if you're a part of the 7-Figure University. So if you're looking for a CRM system or a training platform, or even something better, something that's a combo, head over to 7figureu.com. That's SEVENFIGUREU.com. I wanted to share my thoughts on this because part of this commentary from agents that I saw this weekend, some of you almost, and again, this was kind of my interpretation. I'm trying to see the forest through the trees with some of these agents and what their actual thoughts are. And I could be wrong, but it almost seemed like some of you thought that we were being paid in a charitable way from these carriers. Like the carriers, they're like, oh, thanks for doing your best, Christian. Here's your $20 a month renewal on this policy. Like, you're such a good little boy, Christian. And my stance on this is this is a business, right? Like, they're paying us to right business. They're paying us to service these clients. Like that's why they pay those renewals, right? Because
Yes.
we're going to service these clients. If they need help with an issue or a claim with their policy, they most likely will call us before they call the carrier. If they need to be switched into a new policy, they're going to call us before they call the carrier. There's a reason they pay us. They don't just pay us like for frivolous reasons. Like there's a monetary reason why the carriers want to pay us. And at 66 million beneficiaries today, and that number growing all the time, I'm estimating hundreds of millions of appointments and phone calls that have to happen every year. And who's going to do that? And someone commented after I said that, someone was like, well, I'll just hire a few more people in India and grab a few more in-house agents, and the carriers don't need us anymore. And it's like, I don't think you understand the scale of this. Like, if it was that easy, why would they not just cut us already, right? If it was that simple, if they could just hire a few more in-house agents, get a bunch of remote workers, and then just cut all brokers and agents out. Like, if it was literally that easy, why wouldn't they do that already? Because I don't think they can. I think this business right now, for better, for worse, they need us. We are a requirement. And so paying us and making sure we're happy is kind of part of the deal for the immediate future, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with you. I think the agent thought process that said that to you is totally looking at this from the wrong lens. Do I think that there could be bad domino effects if the carriers are squeezed too much and there's not a solution presented? They're not allowed to course correct for 2 or 3 years like they need to, right? They're being hammered because of it, and they're not provided more funding. If one of those two things doesn't happen, right? What I think is far more likely is because, like I said, like I've been saying, right? If the carrier is not allowed to make a profit, does the carrier want to play in the game? Probably not. So you might see there was a real life situation when ACA first came out for many years where a lot of the biggest names in health insurance wouldn't play in that sandbox. There was more people that were eligibles than there are Medicare beneficiaries right now. And we saw a lot of carriers, in fact, a vast majority of carriers leave that market, and they left for 5, some of them longer, 5, 6, 7 years before they came back. Some of them never came back.
True.
So, like, if you look at history and where we've been, that was a situation where carriers were used to a certain type of market and a certain way of doing business. All of a sudden, they're told you can't ask health questions anymore. You have to take everybody. It's a shock to the system. It's not profitable for them anymore. They leave. This has a lot of similarities to that.
I could see that for sure.
So that's kind of my thought. I think there's much more of a risk of that than the carriers. Because here's the thing, right? If the carrier's not profitable on a plan, do you think it makes the difference on whether they're profitable or not, whether they pay us? No. If they're not profitable on a plan, paying us versus not paying us doesn't make a difference. Like the amount of money they pay us compared to what they need to make that plan run, I guarantee you, your $20 a month or your $25 a month is not moving the needle for said carrier. You guys are delusional, the ones that think that. Like, now they stop paying commission. Are they doing it to save money, or are they doing it because exactly what these Department of Insurance letters are saying? They're trying to stop enrollments from coming. Right. So like,
so to clarify that, like the cost of healthcare with the plan far supersedes paying us or $20-$25 a month. It's not even close. And I would totally agree with that. Without knowing the specific plan or the specific numbers, I would 100% agree with that. The goal is to stop enrollments in the plan. It's not to not pay us.
Right. It's not like
Yeah.
they pay you the $25 a month and all of a sudden they're in the red. They save the $25 a month and now they're thriving. No, that's not what we're talking about here. Like,
that's such a great point, though, because a lot of people are getting lost in the minutia of all this, and they really do think like they're trying to save that $20 a month that they're paying us. Like, what is 20? That doesn't. Yeah. Okay, really. We got about 10 minutes here. I want to blitz the rest of this document, and then we can kind of.
Let me cover one last point with this before we move on. I'm sorry. I just wanted to cover this before we walk away from
Keep
it.
Going.
So, the average Medicare Advantage carrier, the number we've always heard is they get funded around $1,000 a month per beneficiary. In some areas, it might be more, but that's probably relatively where they're at, right? They have to spend 85% of their funding on benefits. So they're spending $850 a month at least on the plan benefits. So if you think they're going to save that $25 and that's going to push them over when they're already spending minimum $850 a month on the benefits, that's what we're talking about here, people.
It's like that's like the same type of affiliate fee a credit card company might get, right? We're talking about like a 2.5%. Like our payment is meaningless in the system here, guys.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a beneficiary that might end up racking up several thousands of dollars, if not, I mean, think about it. Some of these beneficiaries could be racking up tens of thousands of dollars a month in medical expenses, and they're only getting $1,000 a month. Roughly estimated here. So yeah, I mean, that's the situation that they're worried about. They're not worried about that 2% that they're paying us to service these clients. But for whatever reason, we're so fixated on it because, I don't know if it's like an ego. Maybe that's a whole nother episode. We talk about the ego of an agent where we think it's all about us, right? It's all about my 2%.
It's a very pretentious way of looking at the situation. It really is. Like,
oh my God.
I just wanted to mention that final point because
this is a great point. A very good point.
Anyway, it is kind of crazy to me, but it doesn't mean
running out of
problems.
We're running out of time. I want to finish this document really fast. We have it pulled up on the screen. I'm going to just kind of blitz through it. There's not much left, and then we'll kind of jump into final thoughts here. The department emphasizes that compensation is not a discretionary tool to manage market performance or profitability. Discontinuing commissions on filed products, particularly when carriers have appointed agents' commissions were historically paid or failed to provide advance notice of zero commission status, undermines consumer access and violates Delaware law. These actions also adversely impact fair competition in the Medicare market. Carrier and producer responsibilities. All carriers and producers must act in good faith and in full compliance with the Delaware and federal law. Products have been filed and approved for sale must be marketed without artificial barriers, discriminatory practices, or disincentives. If a product was filed with the expectation of producer compensation, carriers must honor that commitment. Only carriers that explicitly filed plans with a documented zero commission structure may avoid paying commissions. Any other attempt to suppress compensation or manipulate sales incentives is considered unlawful. Producers have a legal and ethical duty to prioritize the best interests of the consumer. They must assist individuals in selecting plans that best meet their needs, with consideration given to prescription drug coverage, provider access, overall cost, and affordability. Compliance and enforcement. The department will actively monitor market conduct to ensure compliance with both Delaware law and federal guaranteed availability protections under Medicare statutes. Violations may result in enforcement actions, including but not limited to orders to cease and desist from unfair or deceptive practices, suspension of licenses, administrative penalties, etc. It cites specific laws. Carriers and producers are strongly encouraged to review their compensation policies, marketing practices, and enrollment procedures to ensure full compliance. Questions can be emailed to compliance@delaware.gov, and it's signed by the insurance commissioner. All right, so we made it through the entire document. Doesn't have to necessarily be final thoughts, but maybe final thoughts on the document since we just finished it. Anything there that stands out?
No, I mean, it's kind of a lot of the same, like I understand the whole point of it. Again, I don't know if it necessarily gets to the crux though of the situation. I do think there's some things that the carriers could have been doing better in terms of all of this, right? Like giving more notice on non-commissionable plans certainly seems like something that they could have done better on. To your point, right? Like what has really changed that much that they didn't know about earlier, that they couldn't have given more notice on? Why give notice during AEP? I understand what the carrier would say. The carrier would say, AEP started, we're getting more volume of enrollments into certain products than we thought we would. That being said, a lot of the non-commissionable notices came out before the 15th even happened. You know what I mean? So like what apps are you really seeing? What enrollment numbers are you really seeing? So I understand that part of it. But if the agent's expectation is for the carriers to pay commissions on every single plan, first of all, they've never done that. Surprise to some of you guys, there's always been non-commissionable plans. As long as all of you have been doing this in Medicare Advantage, it's always been a thing in some form or fashion. And so, but I do feel like some agents think that is what the carriers need to be doing.